go back to the passage that we looked at yesterday. Even if we were all wise, all understanding, all of us were, Richard, I don't know if your audio is on. It just says your video, but you have to check that out. All knowing the Torah, then it's a mitzvah for us to tell the story of the Exodus. And so, even though we saw a lot of beautiful explanations before we go on to the more one tells the story, the more one is praiseworthy. So I wanted to just spend a moment before we go on to the next incident in the Haggadah to go over. I have the Haggadah from the Musar movement. It's the Haggadah from the great of the Musar movement. Musar is about introspection. So I thought this was a good passage to focus on introspection. And of course, if anybody has other insights from their Haggadah, please share it. So the one explanation is, what's it trying to tell us? Even if we're all wise, all understanding, all elderly, if it wants to tell us that even if we already know about the Exodus, nevertheless, we have to talk about it. So why does it say all wise and all understanding? Do you need to be so wise and understanding to understand about the Exodus? It's not so hard to understand that there's an Exodus. What do you mean? Even if you're so smart. So therefore, even though he's wise and understanding, and so therefore you might think this is what it means. Listen to this beautiful explanations. Even though you're so wise and understanding, and it's hot in here, right, Dan? No. I just think but if we just turned on the heat. If we open,
that's fine.
It's fine. We just take off the jacket. Yeah, okay, fine. I'll just take off my jacket. That'll be fine. So even if it's so wise, and you might think, listen, I'm so smart, I don't need to tell this story of the Prince of Egypt. Look, they made a movie about it. It's a bedtime story. I don't need to tell this bedtime story. Nevertheless, he has to tell very simply the story of the Exodus. Even though you think, I'm so smart, I went to Harvard, I got a PhD in Semitics, whatever. No, you still have to tell the story. Even if there's no children, and that's the next story. This is the incident of Rabbi Akiva. The next story is the story of Rabbi Akiva and the other scholars that Rabbi Akiva was not, he was obviously a genius and a spiritual genius, and you might have said, oh, I've done this all before, let me do something else. No, he wasn't going into the depths. He was simply reading that passage, even though he might have thought he was so smart. And so also, and that is what it says, that somebody who engages in the story of the Exodus and understands it is really fulfilling the desire of Hashem. And this is what it says. This story is beautiful even without any chidushim, even without any novel explanation, because it's a sign that you love the deeds of God. So therefore, that's the first explanation, and that's why this is what the Rebbe, the Saba of Kelm said. So that it says, whoever tells a story of Exodus is praiseworthy. The story itself makes him improved. Just telling the story, meaning say even as a simple story, it's worthy of something beautiful. That's the first thing from the Musar movement, this beautiful passage. Okay, the second thing comes from, this is focusing from the Musar movement. Musar is the movement to help us become better people. So it says, this is from Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler. Eliyahu Dessler, the great mashgiach to help us become spiritually improved. He said, like Steve just said, the Haggadah of Pesach was founded by the Gedolei, by the greatest sages of the Torah, in order for us to fulfill the mitzvah of teaching our children. And so therefore, we can learn from it the method of how we teach children. So therefore, as an example, we can find that the way to teach is through questions and answers. And first, the main thing is to awaken within the child the desire to ask questions. So that's is like a fundamental idea of the Haggadah, is that so that the children will ask. A fundamental point of the Haggadah is to try and arouse questions in everybody there, because we learn more through our questions than through our answers. That's a fundamental idea. The more we question, so rather than just being told, and I realize I'm just telling everybody now, but that's the basic point, that we want to inspire people to ask questions. That's the first thing Rabbi Elio does or says. And also, that's one way, through telling the story, through trying to inspire questions, also through tangible, through actually feeling things. Like you say, this matzah, this myrrh, living examples. We're not getting up there giving a lecture in a room with 1,000 people. We're not just handing out reading assignments. We're making it alive. We're literally saying this matzah. Also, it says a person should always feel like he left Egypt. And if you hadn't taken us out, we and our children and our grandchildren would still be slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. These are all sayings, putting ourselves into the story. Dayenu, it would have been enough for us. And therefore, another way is, he says, achas kama v'kama, to make another logical argument. And then finally, what do we come to when we come to this phrase? Even if we were all wise, that a person needs to ask himself. The Gemara says, even if there's nobody with him, he has to ask this question to himself. If anybody here is having that Haggadah by himself, you have to ask these questions. Or even two Torah scholars are sitting amongst each other, they have to ask these questions. So therefore, says Rabbi Dessler, how can we have the same nusach, the same text for a child and a scholar? Well, and what benefit is it for him to ask himself? But the reason is that the mitzvah of tonight, of Seder night, is to bring the truth of the Exodus to the heart. And if the intellect is wise, the heart might still be an Amaretz. The heart might still be an ignoramus. And so therefore, the heart also has a youth in it. And so therefore, we have to bring it into the heart. So it's not about, therefore, he says, two aspects here of what he's saying. First of all, we learn pedagogy. Number two, it's not about the wisdom of the mind, but it's about the wisdom of the heart. We have to allow it to fall over us and come into our heart. And that is what he says is a fundamental idea, a fundamental principle about service of Hashem.
Kids say it the way it is.
Not only kids, but yeah, we have to learn from that's another beautiful idea. Beautiful idea, Rabbi Yosef. Then he says, even if we are all elders, this is from the Saba of Chelm. The Saba of Chelm said, what is this concept of, he says, what is the association with being elderly and being a Torah scholar? Because as they get older, they more and more understand the path of wisdom. And so therefore they bring it to their heart and they come closer to doing it. Okay. Anyway, he goes into that, but we can leave that idea there. But he says, and whoever tells the story of the Exodus will be praised. So here about this, Rabbi Yerucham was the Mashkiach of Mir. He was the spiritual master of Mir. What does he say? He says the concept of remembering the Exodus is that the Exodus from Egypt needs to always remain with us. It's not something that we should put out on Seder night. It has to always remain with us. And the foundation of the Exodus is that the revealed miracles, there were revealed miracles which cannot relate and which deviated from the way the normal world comes. And so therefore, what we have to remember when we say, what are we remembering when we say we always have to remember the Exodus? That we have to say that we always have to feel the relationship to God like was felt when the Exodus when we had the revealed miracles of the Exodus. Okay. One more teaching here from this is from Rav Lopian. Rav Lopian, if you remember, many years ago there was a Rosh Kollel in Berman. He was the grandson of Rav Lopian. So he says, whoever tells the story of the Exodus, this person is praiseworthy. And so it says that because a person continues to tell the story of the Exodus, he's going to become more and more a finer human being. He'll be more praiseworthy. So that's what God said. As it says, God says, appoint me king so that, say in front of me about kingship so that you appoint me king over you. Meaning to say that you will become more praiseworthy by reciting this story. The more you tell this story, it's not that it's a praiseworthy act, but you will become praiseworthy. Okay, so then we told the story of, we did this yesterday, so I don't want to go into it in too much detail, but we said that there was the incident with these 5 scholars, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Tarfon, that they were reclining in Bnei Brak, and they were telling the story of the Exodus until their students came and they said it is the time of Shacharis in the morning. We focused on that story yesterday, so now I want to go on to the next one. It says Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, behold, it's like I am 70 years old and I did not merit. Behold, it's like I'm 70. And I never merited to say the Exodus at night until Ben Zoma came along and taught the verse, all the days of your life. All the days of your life is during the days. All the days of your night is including at night. And the sages said, is in this world, and all your days is to bring even in the time of the Messiah. Okay, just before we go to the commentaries on this, I want to just share my simple explanation of what this is about so everybody can be with it. Basically, first of all, we take a step back. Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, this is the story from Brachos. We know that the Gemara in Brachos tells us, what is the Gemara in Brachos tells us? That there was an incident, there was a dispute in the yeshiva between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yoshua. The student, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, had asked the question, is Marav Rishus or obligatory? Rabbi Gamliel said it's obligatory, but first he went to Rabbi Yoshua, said it was optional. Then when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai went to Rabbi Gamliel, he said, why are you saying it's obligatory? So Rabbi Yoshua said it was optional. He says, ask me the question in front of the whole yeshiva. When he asked the question, he said it's obligatory. He said, is there anybody who disagrees? And he made Rabbi Yoshua stand on his legs and he gave the lecture the whole time. And after that, Rabbi Yoshua was so embarrassed that the people said, we're going to depose Rabbi Gamliel from his position as being the leader of the academy. But then they didn't know what to do. Who should they appoint in his place? They said, we can't appoint Rabbi Yoshua because he was already in the incident. It's going to look bad for him that he's the one who wanted the job. He said, we can't appoint Rabbi Akiva because Rabbi Akiva he didn't have lineage. He didn't have the merit of his ancestors. So they said, let's appoint Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah. Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, he said, let me go home and ask my wife. His wife said to him, his wife had 2 objections. One, she said, they're going to get rid of you like they got rid of him. And in fact, they did at the end of the story. But also she said, nobody's going to respect you. You're too young. So that night he grew white hair. And that's why he says, behold, I was 70 years old. I wasn't actually 70, but I grew gray hair overnight. Meaning to say, when you put somebody in a position of communal leadership overnight, they put you in a position overnight, you grow great hair. Okay, fine. And then he says, I never merited, hold on, let me just finish this sentence. I never merited to say the story of the Exodus at night until Ben Zoma taught that you should remember the Exodus all your days. Your days are during the day, and all your days are at night. So I want to say, what's the pshat here? What does it mean? I never merited to say it at night. He said, I can't. This to me is a metaphor. Night is a metaphor. When you're in the midst of darkness, he said, how am I going to tell the story of the Exodus where I'm in the middle of the night, in the middle of the darkest moments of life? How am I going to tell the story? And so then, therefore, Ben Zoma came along and Ben Zoma taught. You have to remind yourself of the Exodus, even in the darkest times, even during the darkest times of the nights. You have to tell the story. You have to believe, even in the darkest moments of life, you have to believe in the power of redemption. We were just doing before we came to the Haggadah class, we were studying the Mishnah with Benedict Roth. And Benedict pointed out that the Paschal lamb is the only sacrificial offering which is not eaten right away, that you're not allowed to eat it right away. You have to wait till nightfall to eat it. And so we discussed in his shir, what's the reason why you have to wait to eat the Paschal lamb? It's because sometimes redemption is not always immediate. You have to wait, Rabbi Eliezer. You have to wait sometimes for the redemption. You're working so hard. Every day we're working. Where's the redemption? Where's the redemption? All your days of your nights, you have to wait for redemption, meaning even in the darkest moments, you're still waiting for the redemption. And then the sages said, no, you're missing the point. The redemption is in the time of the Messiah, meaning to say, you might not even get it in this lifetime. You might not even get it. The ultimate redemption is in the next world. You might not even have it. That's the power of this dispute, that even in the time of the Mashiach, meaning to say you might not even get it in this world. We're waiting. We can always be waiting until the Messianic era. Oh, yes, Jerry, you had a question.
Yes. Are we to assume, based on Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah's statement, that at one time the Seder took place during daylight in the morning?
No, I wouldn't assume that, because the Paschal lamb had to be eaten at night. It says to eat it at night in the Bible.
And then why did he ask this question? That I had to rely on Ben Zoma.
Okay, right. So he might have thought that the mitzvah of telling the story was only during the day. Yeah, it's a very good point. Well, no, he was
not talking about the third parsha of the Shema in Mariv.
Yeah, B'shach b'chov kumecha, right?
No, of Vayomer, that it talks about Yetziat Mitzrayim. That's how Rashi explains it.
But that's during the day.
Yeah. Where Eliezer ben Azar is saying that they had the custom to only say the first two paragraphs of the Shema.
And then he added the third. Very nice.
I'm pretty sure that's what Rashi says there in the Gemara.
Beautiful. Okay, so let me just pause from here and say, what are this Haggadah that I'm using, the Hasidic Haggadah? Let's see what they say. He says, Amar Rebbe Eliezer ben Azariah. What do they say? He says, I did not merit. He said, like I was saying. So Rav Zheva v'Zhitomer. So he says, what does it mean? I never merited to remember the Exodus at night. I was unable to experience a personal exodus from Egypt in the night of exile. I never personally felt redeemed. And then he said, in order to remember that the day you left Egypt includes the nights. This is what they say. This is what the Slonimer says. In the ability to experience an exodus from Egypt in the night of exile comes from remembering the day you left Egypt. If you'll remember the day you left Egypt, then you'll be able to experience the exodus even when you're in the midst of exile. How do you get out of your exile, your personal exile? By remembering the exodus. Then you're going to be able to transform whatever situation you're in. And what I think what faith does for us is faith allows us to deal with every situation if we have faith in God. And so basically, if we remember the Exodus story, then we'll be able to transcend every situation. The Jews who had left Egypt had sunk to the level of the Egyptians and lost all connection to their spiritual heritage. Nevertheless, because of the innate powers of faith ingrained within their hearts, they were able to motivate God to bring about a miraculous redemption. Similarly, regardless of a Jew's spiritual level, he possesses a spark which can elevate him beyond the limits of nature and bring him to a complete bond with God. Okay, now we're going to say something from the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak of Lubavitch. He says, all the days of your life to bring the Messianic era. So he says the literal translation of the Hebrew is all your days to bring the Mashiach. This means a Jew should dedicate his entire life to one goal, bringing Mashiach. What does bringing Mashiach mean? It means making a better world. So a Jew should dedicate his entire life to one goal, bringing the Mashiach. A powerful idea. A powerful idea from the sixth Rebbe. The sixth Rebbe. Okay, so anybody have anything to add? All right, so we're moving right along.
So.
Yes,
I have one explanation I've always thought was fun.
Dan is going to share something.
So
Yes.
how many times do we tell the story? Anybody?
How many times do we tell which story?
The story of the Exodus in the Haggadah,
Well, tell me.
4 times. So the structure is question, answer, praise. So you see questions, right? Mani Shana,
Right,
and then answers, and then Baruch Hama comes praise.
okay,
Then we have the questions from the 4 sons,
right,
right? And then we have the answers, and then we have Baruch Shomer Haftakat Obehi Sha'am. That's the second telling.
right,
The third telling is from Sei Ulamad to Dayenu, question,
Okay.
answer, praise. And then the fourth is Rabban Gamliel,
right.
question, answer, and praise is the
Right.
the-
Beautiful, beautiful,
And
beautiful.
what does that teach us?
No,
Why we tell the story 4 different ways to correspond to the 4 sons, and the point is everybody learns differently. And so we're attacking the problem
beautiful,
of teaching, of telling the story 4 different ways.
beautiful. Shkoyach. Is that your explanation?
I read that in a book, but I use that at every Seder. It's one of my go-to Troy explanation.
All right.
Rabbi,
Yes,
we talked today about a 5th hidden reason.
you mean in the Mishnah?
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's a debate. That's why there was a dispute whether or not you're supposed to have 4 cups or 5 cups. And Rambam says 5 cups. So that's why some point to 5. But there's always a hidden reason out there. There's always something deeper. Exactly right. I'm
Well,
sure.
that's one of the explanations for why it's kosel yahu. We say teku.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. That there's the 4, but I bet if we look harder, we'll find the 5th. Maybe in Nirtza, there's a question there. Maybe there
Well,
within.
there's a dispute in the.
No,
Talmud
but I'm
about
saying,
4 or 5.
but if we look closely, then this you could add as a coda to your explanation. The Nirtza has the questions in it. The songs, some of the songs have questions. Who knows one? Who knows one? So maybe that's asking those questions at the end. Maybe that's bringing it in a 5th. Okay, Jerry, you had something to add?
Yes, has anybody found a Rashi commentary on the Haggadah?
Oh, okay, very nice question. So here, I see that Deborah sent me yesterday a brilliant article, which I enjoyed a lot, which was an article that the Lubavitcher Rebbe every year on Pesach night, after he finishes Haggadah, after he finishes Seder, he would go to 770 and give a big class. Can you imagine that? Going to a shir on Seder night after your Haggadah. And here, and his shir for several years was the focus was they would take the verses from the Rashi, the verses that are mentioned in the Haggadah. But I called Judah Shore, and Judah, who left the Zoom, I said, maybe you could find it. And I sent it to a Chabad rabbi. Maybe you could find me this commentary. I'd love to study it, but they didn't get back to me.
Well, so what's the answer? There is or is not a commentary by Rashi?
No, there is not a direct commentary by Rashi, but what there is you could take what Rashi said in the rest of his works and apply it to the verses that are mentioned in the Haggadah.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
All right, so now we go, moving right along, we're up to the next important phrase. Baruch HaMakom, Blessed are you. Blessed is the place. Baruch Hu, Baruch HaMakom. Blessed be God. The place is another name for God. So blessed be God, blessed be He. What does it mean? Baruch HaMakom, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shanatan Torah Amo Yisrael. So this is a powerful phrase. Blessed be God, blessed be He. Blessed be He who has given His Torah to His nation Israel. Blessed be He. So Makom. By the way, we saw a reference to God as Makom in Tractate Nazir. We saw a reference. I don't know if you remember. God was called place. So the name that God uses for God, Makom, literally means the place. So it means to say He is the place of the world. The world is not His place. That God is the omnipresent. God is everywhere. God is the place. That's what Rabbi Yerachmiel Yisrael of Alexander says. Why does Haggadah refer to God with this name and not another? This is so powerful. You could use this at your Seder. Use this. Because a Jew, for thousands of years, the Jews held the Seder. Where were they when they were holding the Seder? Sometimes they were in Israel. Sometimes they were in the Siberia. Sometimes they were in the
Most of the time, most of them were in Galut. Dispersed.
Always, they were but not only in Galut, they were in terrible places. They were all scattered all over the world. And they were being told, you think you're away from God? By the way, Judah, I just quoted you. Somebody asked the question. I said, we asked Judah to find the work, to find the Rebbe's commentary on Rashi, on the Haggadah. Anyway, so we say that it says that all the times that they were giving the Haggadah, the Jews were all over the place. We didn't know where we were. I mean, we didn't know where we were in the world, but we thought we were distant. So we're saying, no, God is every place. You think you're away from God? Don't worry about it. You're in Siberia. You're in the darkest days of the shtetl. God is with you right where you are. Wherever you are, God is with you. That Hashem is not separate from God, from you when you're doing the Seder. No matter where the Jew is, Hashem is present. That's why it's called Hamakom. Beautiful idea. You could use that at your Seder, because not all of us are able to be in the most beautiful place. Now, it says Baruch Hamakom. You had a question, Judah? I cut you off.
No, I was going to say that, the Rebbe, when the Nazis, looked everywhere around the world to kill Jews, the Rebbe sent emissaries all around the world so they could have their own little place that they could, enjoy practicing Yiddishkeit. Even if one flame had to be kindled, he wanted emissaries all over the world, because the darkest of dark, one little match gives out more light. So that's the reason he sent out all his emissaries all over.
Yeah, but before the biggest Seder in Kathmandu, I think that's the biggest now in the world. In 1946, they had a Seder organized by the American Jewish chaplains outside of Munich. And if you go online, there are pictures. I don't know why there were pictures of it, because it was Yantiv, but it was pretty big. It was hundreds of people. And they printed their own Haggadahs, like they brought from the US, Haggadah, matzah, and grape juice and stuff like that. So
can you imagine saying a Seder in 1946 in Munich that you've just been redeemed? Can you imagine what it means to be redeemed at that moment? How powerful and how special it was. So let me just speak about this. It says, blessed is the place, blessed is He, blessed is the one who gave Torah to Israel, blessed is He. The Haggadah mentions 4 blessings. Each one is corresponding to a different one of the 4 sons. So each of the sons is given as Dan was saying before, a unique blessing, unique path to thank Hashem for the kindness he has received. Very nice. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll stop here, my friends. Stop here. Stop the recording. What?